Welcome back. There are thousands of people living with invisible illnesses. They may look perfectly healthy, but they're suffering in silence. Well, the last of our special health reports marks World IBD Day, a worldwide campaign to highlight inflammatory bowel disease. Its aim is to raise awareness of the condition and how it affects those who have it. Amy Dunsmuir has been talking to one woman whose life changed dramatically with her diagnosis.
No one will really talk about having stomas or the fact that they, have a condition that means they need to go to the toilet a lot.
At the age of 24, everyday life for Nancy Gregg changed dramatically. She was in severe pain, having to go to the bathroom at least 20 times a day and bleeding when she did so. 6 years later, she was eventually diagnosed with ulcerative colitis.
On and off, I was having quite bad flare-ups for about 4 years, taking a lot of different medication, and then I ended up having some emergency surgery when I was 34, and I had a colectomy, so I now have a stoma, an ileostomy, which means that my small intestine comes out onto the outside of my body, onto my stomach, and I have to wear a bag all the time, 24 hours a day, to collect the waste. And that's really improved my quality of life. Yep. It was not an easy thing to go through because I was really quite ill for about 6 months before that happened, and my health really went downhill quite rapidly.
Ulcerative colitis is one of the two main forms of inflammatory bowel disease. It affects the colon, causing it to become inflamed and covered in tiny ulcers, which can bleed and cause severe pain. The other main form of IBD is Crohn's disease. It differs from colitis because it can affect any part of the digestive system. In Scotland, there are as many as 26,000 people with the illness, higher than anywhere else in the UK, with a new person being diagnosed every 30 minutes. But despite the growing number of those suffering, there is still a lack of specialist staff on offer to help.
We think there's about 45 nurses working across the whole of Scotland. If you do the simple maths, 26,000 patients, probably more than that, 45 nurses, that potentially means, in simple terms, that one nurse could be having to look after a patient caseload of over 500 patients. Now, clearly that's not acceptable, that's not good enough, and no one, however superhuman an IBD specialist nurse is going to be able to give the treatment and the support to these patients that they need and deserve.
For thousands of people across Scotland, the need for more specialist help is an urgent one. It's hoped that this year's World IBD Day will continue to raise awareness of their concerns and ensure that people like Nancy will continue to get the help they need. Amy Dunsmuir, STV News.
Well, Elaine Stephen from Crohn's and Colitis UK joins me now, along with the reporter on that story, Amy Dunsmuir. Thanks to you both for coming in. Elaine, first of all, we heard there in Amy's story that there's a serious lack of IBD nurses. Why is this the case?
I'm not really sure why it's the case. I think inflammatory bowel disease services have grown up organically rather than being a service that's been planned to be delivered, if you see what I mean. And I think that has perhaps created this situation that, as I say, people working in the local services, the clinicians, the gastroenterologists, have tried to get IBD nurses, but not necessarily always successfully. They're an absolute linchpin to patients, though, when they're there.
And is it a condition that you think many people know about?
I suspect not. Not as many people, I think, as we would like to know about it, in fact. I think sometimes people say, oh, I've heard of that, but they don't really have any understanding of actually what it's like and how potentially serious it might be for individuals.
Now, Amy, you spoke to Nancy, but this is something you have personal experience of as well.
It is, yeah. I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis in 2014, just at the tail end of the year. So I've had it now for about a year and a half. As far as it goes, I'm fairly lucky. I don't really have that bad a condition at the minute. Obviously, it's something that can change depending on stress and could have a flare-up at any given time. But at the minute, I'm fairly well kind of managed with lots of medication. But it is something, like Elaine was saying, that just not many people know about. There's probably people, friends and family watching this that are going, oh, I didn't know that you had that, because it's not really something you can talk about in polite society. People don't want to know about, bowel movements and how many times you go to the toilet, so it's always quite difficult to talk about.
And I think it's difficult for people to understand that, as you say, you're all right today, but you might be unwell next week. And I think, generally speaking, we tend to think if you're told you've got a diagnosis, well, that's a relief, I know what it is, there's the pills, or there's the surgery, and that's it, over with. And it's not over, and I think that's difficult for people to grasp.
So, Elaine, it's an invisible illness, and raising awareness of World IBD Day, this is what it's all about. Tell me about that.
World IBD Day, well, it is a worldwide campaign to raise awareness. Obviously, people worldwide and the various patient organisations feel that there's a need to do that. In the UK, we're saying we need more IBD nurses. That's the kind of, the hook for our campaign this year. But I think, generally speaking, every day across the world, Canada, America, in Australia, France, the whole of Europe, we're all raising awareness today to say, look, guys, we really need more awareness. We really need people to understand that these are conditions, they're serious conditions, and that they change people's lives.
And what more needs to be done, and who needs to do it?
What needs to be done? Well, I think what we would like is the IBD services. We want more IBD nurses within those services. We need responsive IBD services that meet the needs of Amy, for instance. She's saying she's well today, but you might not be well next week. So you need to be able to pick up a phone, speak to an IBD nurse, get back into that service, see your gastroenterologist. It's that kind of responsive service that we need. Very fortunate in Scotland that we have been working with the Scottish Government, and we will be having a national blueprint for IBD services, so that's very good news. But of course, sometimes just getting to that point is good, but we still need to do the work to keep moving on and keep making life better for Amy and all the other 26,000 people in Scotland.
And Amy, briefly, as someone who's gone through the diagnosis, what would your advice be to someone who's suffering or believes they have a condition like you do?
Definitely go to the doctor. I mean, Nancy, she didn't go to the doctors for a good few years, and she could have maybe stopped herself from having to get the surgery. Definitely go to your doctor and speak to people, go on Crohn's and Colitis website, go to discussion groups and just chat to people about it, because it really, really does help, I promise you. It does.
Well, Amy and Elaine, thank you so much for coming in and telling us all about this.
Thank you.
And finally, a winged war goddess, a magic roundabout, flowing gowns, just some of the more interesting designs on the runway at this year's Edinburgh College of Art fashion show. The event displays work from graduating students as well as those in second and third year. Susan Ripple has been taking a look.
Florence from the Magic Roundabout here preparing to take Dougal for a different kind of stroll down the catwalk.
It actually started with the moving carousel skirt, because obviously the motion and the physics of trying to get somebody to walk and have a rotating skirt is quite a challenge. So that has been a bit of a technical challenge. And then it's just adding things along the way, and you get inspired by all sorts of different things. You're always amazed by what you kind of pick up.
Ailey's designs are part of the performance costume programme being showcased at this year's Edinburgh College of Art fashion show. Former students have gone on to work on some familiar productions.
Game of Thrones, Poldark, Star Wars, Outlander, a huge range, as well as all the sort of the national stage companies as well. So the students do really well when they graduate, and I feel like this year group are ready to get out there and work, and I just wish them all the best of luck for it.
And for the students, this fashion show is just the beginning.
This is a detachable sort of pillow.
Jonathan Preston Moore has secured internships at both Burberry and Topshop.
When you've worked so hard on it, and then to kind of see it all come together, especially when you've been seeing it so much in the studios and under horrible lighting, so to see it in a kind of environment where it's suited to is definitely eye-opening.
The show marks the culmination of months of work for these students. What started as simple sketches, now taking centre stage. An exciting time for these designers, making strides towards successful careers in fashion. Susan Ripple, STV News, Edinburgh.
Now you can get in touch with us if there's something happening in your community. You can contact any of our reporters by Facebook or on Twitter, and keep up to date on the STV News app. And that's it from all of us here in the STV News team. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye.